And right now I'm happy to be joined in studio by Harford County Executive Bob Cassilly. He's, just so you guys know, he served 3 terms in Iraq and is a legitimate Bronze Star recipient. Successful lawyer, raised 5 children, don't know how you did that, and truly is the first conservative in Harford County as the executive. Good morning.
Good morning, Kim.
How
Great to be here. I'm delighted. This is what a beautiful April day this is, and April Fools and all that stuff in action. So it's good to be here.
Yeah, and I love you're a legitimate Bronze Star recipient, county executive. And I don't want to get into the weeds on this one, but of course, we're all talking about the new poll numbers out for Governor Wes Moore, and one of those poll numbers we saw where a lot of people don't trust him. I would think a lot of that would be surrounding, just a Bronze Star, awarding it 16 years later. I mean, somebody that has received the Bronze Star, I just want to get your reaction to even just kind of went on with that. We have veterans that call the show and say that they are really, disheartened by the fact that he, did that so much later and claimed it at a time that he didn't actually have it.
So, I mean, veterans, we kind of leave each other alone. And that's, I'm very proud of my Bronze Star. I was serving with the 82nd Airborne Division at the time, and that's to the commander that put me up for that. So I'm very proud of the fact that happened for my time in Tikrit in Saladin province in Iraq, in a really bad time in the war where a lot of stuff was happening. So, I'll leave it at that. All
right. Some veterans, they say different, but I can understand it. I mean, obviously, Governor Wes Moore is somebody that you've got to work with. You're the Harford County Executive. You've got to work with the leaders here in the state.
Executive.
Yeah, exactly. I'm kind of going to start there because we were speaking to Delegate Nino Mangione just a little bit ago, and he was talking about the budget that just passed. Harford County Executive Bob Cassilly, I got to ask, does it worry you that a lot of the local jurisdictions are going to take a lot of the brunt here when it comes to trying to figure out how to make the numbers work?
Yeah, when I hear state legislators talking about cutting the budget, and I see how many times that means just simply shifting the burden from a certain expense from the state onto the county, to me that's not a cut, because in the end it's the same taxpayers. And if you tell them, well, I'm taking out of your left pocket instead of your right pocket, they're like, it's still my money coming out. And so that's just really disingenuous. And to give you a sense of where this is, the gas tax. The counties are supposed to receive a share of the gas tax. When the gas tax was originally imposed, that's the fee that you pay at the pumps, and that would go towards, originally we would get a share of that in the counties. When that was originally proposed, if we were getting the share we were getting under the original proposal, right now we'd be pulling about $40 million in at the county level if we were getting that amount. But the state has cut our share back, so this year we'll be getting the $2 to $3 million. So that just shows you that shifting of that burden. So that means that our roads are really not being paid for by the road users. It has to come out of the general fund, which just doesn't favor us at all. But that's the kind of games that the teachers' pension costs shifted from the state to the county. Numerous other expenses, because the state continues to dial back on what they're paying for education versus what we're paying for education. And it's just kind of across the board, this constant dribble of, well, we're just gonna push that burden to the county but we're not gonna cut state spending. We're just gonna shift the state spending from what we were spending in the counties out to other social welfare programs and the like, special little programs that state legislators favor. It's really tough.
No, it is tough. And look, you have experience in Annapolis.
Yeah.
So you understand what goes on up there.
Yeah, the game of as the legislative body got more control of the budget went wild, because instead of having an executive put the budget together based upon the input from all the departments, you're getting a budget put together in sort of a free trading arrangement where, well, if you support money for me for this, I'll support money for you for that, and the legislature starts trading. It's horse trading back and forth, and it just goes off the rails, and you lose all control. We actually had a bill in the county, at a county level, where they tried to do that. The county council president introduced a proposed bill to actually change our county charter to allow this free horse trading of amongst council members on the budget, which would have been devastating, because that means the county executive can't impose fiscal discipline at all, because you just submit a proposed budget and it just goes off the rails as it feeds into the legislative body, and they start horse trading, and the spending goes wild.
Yeah, no, speaking of which, I mean, like you said, you've got a lot what you have to deal with locally. I would assume with the fire department, the police department. Obviously, we've got text messages coming in from listeners. Robert saying, family property sales. There's a video circulating of Bob talking about closing police precincts. Is that going to happen?
No, that's not what that's not what I said at all in the video. I mean, they take a snippet and then say, here's what the rest of the video said. No, put the whole video up. And if you look at the whole video of what I said is the sheriff had asked to increase the number of police precincts, and he compared Harford County to Baltimore County. Baltimore County has, I think, 9. We have 2 sheriff's precincts, but we're different. Harford County is different than Baltimore County because we have municipalities. Baltimore County did away with all their municipalities. So we have 3 municipalities, Haverty, Grace, Aberdeen, and Bel Air, and each one of those has a full police department with a full police station with a holding cell and all that, interview rooms. So those are de facto precincts. So we actually have 5 precincts. Baltimore County has 9. Baltimore County has about 860,000 people. We have about 270,000 people. So they have about 1 precinct per 100,000 people. Well, we have 5 precincts, and we don't even have 300,000 people. So we have considerably more than they have. I'm not talking about closing anything. The request was, will we open up a new precinct, a county sheriff's precinct in the city of Aberdeen, 2 miles from the existing Aberdeen Police Department? No, we can't afford that because we had to achieve a balanced public safety team here. And when I came in, I was facing a $90 million structural deficit because my predecessor went on a spending binge to get public support for his statewide political campaign. So I had a $90 million structural deficit. I was immediately notified by my volunteer ambulance service that they can no longer serve the citizens effectively. And my volunteer fire company was really much struggling with recruitment and operation. The county police force was doing pretty well because you had, by the sheriff's own statements, crime was falling. The pay we were funding the police at the sheriff's pay scale that he had proposed. So clearly the decision had to be made we better fix the ambulance service because people were literally dying, because we weren't meeting that golden, 8-minute response time. So people were dying of heart attacks and strokes and accident victims who honestly should be alive today. And so that became our focus. I balanced the approach, and instead of bringing on 100 more people to run a new precinct and a new training center, I had to bring on 155, which is still cheaper than 100 on the policing side because they have a pretty good pension. I had to bring on 155 to be able to achieve 17 ambulance full-time, 24/7, 365 ambulances strategically located throughout the county so that every part of the county is getting excellent ambulance service. And that's what we did. And if you look at that video that the person is talking about, that's what I was talking about in that video, that we had to do that balancing. We didn't reduce any police forces. There's the rumor, we defunded a precinct. No, we never defunded anything. The last administration said, hey, the sheriff had asked for a new precinct. The last administration didn't do that. For 8 years they were in there, they didn't give a new precinct, a precinct. On the way out the door, they said, yep, new precinct, and we'll let Bob pay for it. I got in, I said, wait a second, I got failing ambulance service, a struggling fire service, and the police are doing great, and I got a structural deficit of $90 million. I got to relook at this, folks. We relooked at it, and I did. I'm confident that what we did was the right thing. We eliminated the structural deficit without raising taxes in just short of 3 years, and we retained our AAA bond rating. So look, I'm very much pro police. We've increased our policing funding has gone up by 20% in my 3 years. We'll continue to support police this year. We just completed negotiations with our deputies union and agreed to a great pay package for them to keep them one of the most competitive pay scales in the state of Maryland. And I want to tell you that the sheriff did on that precinct that the texter is talking about. The sheriff did a study in 2019 that said, should I build a central precinct? And the sheriff's study came back and said, no, don't do that. Don't build a central precinct because you need that money to invest in salaries and benefits for police. I'm following the sheriff's pay study. I'm following the sheriff's own study on that proposed Aberdeen precinct. I'm doing exactly what the study came out. That was his study. He commissioned it, and I did exactly what the study said, which is you don't need that precinct. What you really need to do is make sure you're paying your cops well, and I totally agree with that. It was a great study, and I'm supporting that, and that's what we proceeded with.
Well, speaking of Harford County Executive Bob Cassilly, kind of staying on the lines of first responders, I did see where you were able to increase funding for your volunteer firefighters and the fire companies.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was huge.
Yeah.
Talking about, balancing the budget. Yeah. What was that like, and what has been the response?
Yeah, so look, when I came in, all I kept hearing was reports of how the volunteer fire companies are struggling. We probably have to abandon that and go to a paid fire company, which is, so we said, let's look at what are the problems. And we sat down with the volunteer companies, because we don't have a paid fire service in Harford County. We're unlike Baltimore County, that's got a sort of a blended paid volunteer. We are strictly volunteer fire company. So we sat down with the volunteers and met with them and what are your challenges here? So, I mean, obviously one was just they needed more financial support from the county. So we did that. We gave a record 30% increase to the volunteer fire companies. But then we also, they had challenges with a lot of the administrative costs that they were having to pick up and administrative duties. So we assumed a lot of those administrative duties within the county government, and we are still working and assuming more of those administrative duties so that the firefighters can show up and actually, their role is to train to fight fires and fight fires, and not all this administrative stuff that, look, they're volunteers, and you overburden them with all this administrative stuff. Who the heck wants to do that anyway? And we came up with some creative incentives to make sure that we had trucks arriving on time and volunteers arriving for trucks that we had drivers available. If you got 4 guys arrive at a fire station and none of them was a driver, the truck can't go out. So we had to address those issues. So we did a lot to balance those out. I think we're public safety wise, we're in a much better position than we were, when I came into office 3 years ago. And I know our ambulance service is saving lives every single day. We did some creative things. We brought in a whole blood program to actually provide whole blood to serious accident victims, and we've used that a number of times to save lives. And we updated some equipment. So, and we also had to address our 911 center, the dispatch, because those folks were really, they didn't have, the structure was not there, the number of people were not there, they were under way too much stress. So we stepped in and did a lot for that one as well.
Sounds good. When we get back, Harford County Executive Bob Cassilly is going to stay with us. When we get back, I do want to talk to you a little bit about illegal immigration. Sure. Obviously, there's a lot going on there. Mm-hmm. We've been hearing from Patty Warren, the mother of Rachel Warren, who was killed there in Harford County on the Mud Paw Trail. And then also I want to get into what's next with the superintendent. Obviously, there was big news there. So stay right there. We'll continue with Bob Cassilly when we get back. Good morning to all of you. We're speaking of Bob Cassilly, Harford County Executive, here in studio. Bob, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're very busy.
It's good to be here with you.
No, I know you're busy. So I wanted to ask you, obviously, a big topic of discussion, not just here in the state of Maryland, but across the country, illegal immigration.
Sure.
We have President Trump in office. Of course, he was given this mandate to go out and hopefully deport individuals that are here illegally, especially those that have been charged with crimes. And then we see here in the state of Maryland, because you've got Governor Moore and Democrats that are the majority, and they're really just, trying to stick it to President Trump. And so they banned 287G. That's one piece of it. But another piece of it, you see Patty Warren, Rachel Warren's mom, speaking out and trying to understand why they're going in this direction. I know you do things a little differently in Harford County. What's it like working with the federal partners? Are you still able to work with the federal partners? And then what action has been taken on the Mud Paw Trail?
Sure. So in Harford County, our policing is done by the sheriff. It's not, my role as the county executive is to provide them with the funding and the equipment to do their job. And so when it comes to implementing 287G, that's done through the sheriff's office. I fully support that effort. I mean, having spoken with Patty and Kayla, their moms, the impact of this stuff on people's lives was just really devastating. And the shock that these murders to local people in Harford County, what that just caused to the entire community was really devastating. People lost confidence, in just everyday life. People, they felt like they had taken for granted the freedom just to walk about their community safely. as these really, I mean, you were talking, in each case, these were really violent people that came across the border. And so I've been a firm supporter of the 287G and the president's policies on illegal aliens, particularly the violent folks. We went to get the security, get the public sense security back. We installed security cameras all along the Paul Trail in Hartford County. It's a really popular, if you don't know, it's really popular. It's an old abandoned rail line for the Maryland and Pennsylvania Railroad. Cuts right through the middle of the county, and it's about 8 miles long. So it's a very popular walking area. So we put security cameras along the more isolated pieces of that so it's under surveillance. And that's done a lot to bring the sense of security back for folks to use it. But the challenge that I have with where the General Assembly is going with the whole illegal alien thing is that they create this presumption that in what they do that if you're not in our system, then you must be a saint. Because when you pull any of us citizens over, the police know what your record is. They have your record all the way back. They know where you're from. They can treat you appropriately. They know whether you're just, a one-timer who did something wrong by mistake, or are you a really bad guy? But when it comes to people that we don't know, they come into the system, and if you don't have their background, there's a presumption that they're saints. But that's not true. And how do we find out the truth? The feds. We go to the feds, and the feds can tell us that the guy that you just put in your detention center is a really, really bad guy or gal, or we don't know. They're probably some poor slob who first time offender type stuff. Don't get too excited about it. And when you take the Fed's surveillance out of that, you're forced the locals to assume that all these guys are really bad, and you end up putting them back into society. So if you pick up a citizen, and he's picked up, hey, this guy's got a warrant, he's a bad guy, let's hold him in here. You pick up an illegal alien, it's like, well, he's probably just a saint, so we're going to let him go. And that's the challenge with where the General Assembly's going. They're creating this false assumption, and we're letting bad guys go, and that's people are getting killed, innocent people, and I don't understand why they have a preference for the safety of illegal aliens over the safety of American citizens. That one I just can't figure out.
I don't think any of us can. That use common sense. I wanted to ask you again, Harford County Executive Bob Cassilly in studio before you go. Obviously, there was a lot of drama surrounding the superintendent not too long ago. Sure. You have an acting superintendent. How is that search going, and where does all that stand?
Yeah. So I was the first public official to just stand up and say for the previous superintendent, it's time to go. Now, when he came out and would not respond to the allegations. I mean, the allegations were pretty damning. And I sat down with the guy and said, okay, look, you got to respond. You better have a heck of a good excuse here. And you got to go public with it now, because silence isn't an option. And he chose silence, and I said, okay, well, that wasn't your option, so you got to go. And I called on the board to get rid of him. I was really pleased when they finally, I'm not pleased that they ended up paying him on the balance of his salary. That was not a good way to go, but hey, I'm very happy that he's gone. So now the board, elected to put out for a search for a substitute, a new superintendent, and that's an internal process. I have no way in on that. In the meantime, Diane Mack, who was the deputy superintendent, she automatically assumed the role as acting superintendent, and during that search process. I think she's interested in the job herself, but they're opening it up, and I think that's a great thing to do, just to anybody else as well.
Well, Harford County Executive, I got about 30 seconds here. Why should people re-elect you as the Harford County Executive?
Yeah, I think we've done a heck of a great job. I came into office and did the things I said I was going to do. I've been a fiscal conservative. I've supported our law enforcement, and worked with folks to really get a lot of great stuff done in Harford County, and I'm really proud of that. We've restored integrity. There was a lot. People used to come to county council complaining all the time about lack of integrity. That's gone. They stopped doing that because we have a great reputation for just being honest, being straightforward with the people, and doing what's right.
Well, Harford County Executive Bob Cassilly, thank you so much for joining me here in studio.
Thanks again.